The United States and Iran have warned each other that they are prepared for war as the clock ticked on a ceasefire.
This while uncertainty persisted over talks in Islamabad, the White House said Vice President J.D. Vance was ready to fly back to the Pakistani capital for a second round of talks on ending the war. But Iran's cleric-run government declined to confirm that it would participate and accused the U.S. of violating the truce through the seizure of a ship in the Strait of Hormuz and its blockade of Iranian ports.
US President Donald Trump said his country will not lift its blockade until a deal has been reached with Iran. In a post on social media, Trump said he is under no pressure to make that deal, dismissing reports suggesting otherwise. However, he added that an agreement would be reached relatively quickly and that the new deal would be better than the old one.
Now, he was referring to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, a pact which curbed Iran's uranium enrichment program in exchange for sanctions. However, the U.S., during Trump's first term in 2018, withdrew from JCPOA.
Well, Trump told Bloomberg News that it was highly unlikely that he would extend this two-week truce. The U.S. president told the New York Post that he's willing to meet with Iranian leaders himself if a breakthrough is reached. He separately told PBS News that if the ceasefire expires, then lots of bombs will start going off.
Now, Iran, however, has cleared that it would not accept negotiations under the shadow of threats. The country's parliament speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, threatened that they have been preparing to show new cards on the battlefield if war resumes.
Since the start of the war on the 28th of February, a number of new sticking points have emerged, which did not exist before, like the Strait of Hormuz, alongside old challenges, which already include Iran's nuclear program, its enriched stockpile, and the stock of enriched uranium, nearly 400 kilograms.
Iran's foreign minister on X said, and I'm quoting him here, "We do not need our rights to be acknowledged or accepted. Our rights already exist. We want our rights to be respected."
Well, Russia has called for the Iran-US ceasefire to be extended beyond its expiry on Wednesday and stressed diplomatic efforts to resolve the war should the war continue. And this is following a call between the Russian and Iranian foreign ministers. All right, for more on this, we are now being joined live by retired Major General Randy Manner from Alexandria in Virginia. Major General, pleasure speaking with you. I'm happy we're having this conversation. Would like to understand from you where the U.S. plans to go from here, because one side says bombs will fall, the other side says new cards on the battlefield will be revealed. Both do not want to approach by submitting to any kind of pressure. The second round of talks seem as evasive at this point as the first one did. Let's start. Do you feel these round of talks will even take place?
There is a possibility they could take place, but unfortunately, there is no trust between these two governments whatsoever. And that is something where I can't sit here and blame the Iranians. The American president, my president, has been all over the map about changing deadlines, changing priorities, changing what the demands are. And quite frankly, a blockade is a sign of aggression. So it's one of those things where, while of course the Iranians have also been doing tit for tat as far as firing on some ships here and there, the United States is in the same boat. So I think what we need to do is both sides need to step back a little bit and be more calm and find some small things that both governments can agree to. When I was in the Middle East, responsible for I was the number two person responsible for U.S. forces in the Middle East. We worked very closely with all of our allies to find a common ground. And I really do not see that happening here in this situation.
Well, General, you did mention that there's no trust between the governments, between Iran and US. But even then, Trump pushes that the talks will happen. They say they do not intend to send negotiators to Islamabad. Tehran says so. And if Iran won't even board the plane, what is the diplomacy that Trump is talking about? And if one side says the ceasefire is already broken, what talks are we even talking about?
Well, I have to agree with your lack of clarity, because that's also where I see it and where many Americans see it as well. There are three components of national power. The first is diplomatic, the second is economic, and the third is military. What we are seeing is this particular administration is going right past diplomatic and going straight to military action. One single day of negotiation with the Iranians that our vice president had a while back, that does not constitute serious negotiations. So again, I say that this particular administration is following a route of chaos and, quite frankly, is unpredictable, which of course does not help the world markets and does not help reduce the risks of increasing oil prices for all of us around the world.
Major General, you've had you've had experience with the 82nd Airborne Division. That's something I really wanted to understand from you. You've served in that division. There are thousands of those troops that are deployed currently in the Middle East with the CENTCOM. What role do you feel they can play or have played so far? And how is that going to impact the ongoing battlefield?
So I sincerely hope that those airborne soldiers and the Marines the airborne soldiers particularly, could be used to reinforce existing U.S. military bases. Because quite frankly, during normal peacetime, before all these hostilities began, there were a minimum of U.S. forces in the Middle East. So I'm hoping that that handful of a few thousand soldiers are there to be able to back up existing capabilities. And the Marines, of course, we know are helping with Navy forces in the Strait, and they're also there. It's a mission of our United States Marines to be able to safeguard our embassies and our consulates. A few thousand Marines and a few thousand airborne soldiers will not be a decisive number of men and women to put on the ground anywhere to swing the momentum. We had over 250,000 soldiers, Marines, and military of all services when we were there in the 2000s. This is not that. So we just need to be very careful, and all of your audience needs to understand that this conflict, while it could get out of control, right now, I hope that cooler heads prevail on both sides to find some areas where they can come to agreement before they get to the more difficult decisions, such as, of course, the enrichment program and opening the strait.
Major General, you established the major pillars that a country needs. You said diplomacy is there, military is there, and economy is there. And I would especially like to know the relationship between military and diplomacy. You've worked in systems where military and diplomatic tracks run together. What risks actually emerge when battlefield pressure moves faster than diplomatic agreements can stabilize? And how does that coordination unfold? Because the reality for troops are way different than it is for the White House or Pentagon even.
Yes, your listeners have to understand that this particular president has diminished our Department of State by almost 50%, meaning that from the beginning of when he took over a year and a half ago until now, we have less than half the capability in our embassies around the world to be able to work as partners with our host nations. And of course, that includes India and the countries that are in the Middle East. Because of that, this president is quick to go to military options. And you are right. Military options, the president can call his military and say, I want you to attack now in these particular locations. He cannot achieve diplomatic results on a whim. And that's not how it works with negotiations. It takes building trust and building some confidence together, both sides, on small things, and then you get to the more difficult issues as you go.
Major General, I'm slightly stepping away from where things stand right now. Given your past and your experience in the army, I want to understand from you, when a country like the US is in the midst of a war which clearly was not estimated to go at the level at which it did. As of now, there is a ceasefire. But in the beginning of this month, the Secretary of Defense asks for voluntary retirement, or in a way fires the Army Chief of Staff, General Randy George. What kind of impact does it have on the US military, and what does that say about the US war effort as of now, regardless of what kind of bombs and what kind of damage Iran has sustained?
So the United States military is still the most powerful and well-trained force on the planet. However, I will tell you that the Secretary of Defense is not experienced and does not know how to lead that department. And it's shown by firing one of the most qualified leaders we have in the military, General Randy George. I know him. He is an outstanding leader. I am hypothesizing, because I do not know firsthand, that he probably disagreed with the Secretary of Defense and stood up for those men and women in the United States Army. And I'm sure the Secretary did not tolerate it, and therefore he got rid of him. This would have been behind closed doors, in the same way that this Secretary of Defense has fired over a dozen senior officers, predominantly minorities and people of color and women, but also, of course, white males who do not agree with him. This is extremely negative for morale and for confidence of the military in the civilian leadership, which we have taken an oath to follow all lawful orders from, of course, the President of the United States.